Confidence is about how you see yourself. Welcome to the Uniquely Confident Podcast.
Positive energy and good vibrations from me to you. It's your boy RJ D, the Imperfect Gentleman. And yes, this is another dope episode of the Uniquely Confident Podcast. Wherever you are out there right now, wherever you're checking this podcast out, get yourself prepared, get comfortable, get yourself in a great position, because I can promise you this man that's on this podcast tonight is going to deliver some information and some vibes that will change your entire outlook on life. How do I know that? Because every single time I come in contact with him, he does it to me. So listen, guys, around here or on this podcast, we got some things we must do. Talk to the Father and pay some bills around here. So with that being said, Father, we thank you for another opportunity to come before you and your people. We are grateful for life, health, and strength and responsibility as men. God, we ask you right now to look over us as we go across the airwaves, that we may be an inspiration and encouragement, as well as inspiration for men and women out there to have more character and confidence in themselves. These are my prayers, and these are what I ask you in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Next, now this podcast has wonderful sponsors. Those guys over at It's Now or Never Entertainment. Listen, for all your music needs, whether it be hip hop, R&B, gospel. His favorite is neo soul. They do some phenomenal work over there. So if you need some music for your reels, any kind of project you may have, go over to It's Now or Never ENT and let them know that the guys over at the Uniquely Confident Podcast sent you. And if you use the word uniquely at checkout, you get 50% off on any beat in the beat store. So that's 50% off. Go over, shop smart, shop black, shop It's Now or Never ENT, and let them know that we sent you from the Uniquely Confident Podcast. Now that's out the way, everything is taken care of. I got my man Kyle King in the building. Yo, Kyle, what's good, my brother? How you feeling, man?
I feel blacktastic, brother, just like we talked about earlier, man.
Yes.
So glad to be here.
Oh man, it's a privilege and honor, my brother, to even have you on the platform right now, man. For the people out there who don't know you, like whoever's literally under a rock, right? Let them know who you are right now, what you do, Kyle.
Who I am, I'm a vessel. I'm a man of God. I am a lover of people. I am an educator of experiences, and I'm a servant in this world. And I think I say all of those because those aren't professional titles. We are not what we do. We're what we were called to be. So I want to be able to communicate who I am and how I implement the things that God has called me to do. Is I've built an online education company that helps entrepreneurs, executives, and high-level experts write, publish, and market books so that they can be able to scale their business through storytelling. I'm a 7-time published author. 7 of the books have been bestsellers. I've sold hundreds of thousands of copies over my 4 years of being an author. I've built a virtual platform that has 30,000 students on that platform, and we teach them financial literacy, real estate, information technology, and entrepreneurship. And I'm currently in the process of acquiring 75 acres of land, and that will build the first affordable housing community in Montgomery County in North Carolina, built out of container homes, so that we'll be able to help African-American and underrepresented families with owning real estate, have equitable opportunities, and have the pathway to education that it actually advances them so that they can have the skill sets and the understanding and the access to information and opportunities in the future. So who I am is clear, but what I do is very intentional.
Yo, Kyle, you just blew my mind, bro. Like, first of all, I knew this was going to be a dope conversation because, like our mentor Dave Shan says, you got to be genuinely interested. I'm super interested in you and what you do, bro, because you just have a certain energy about you. Anybody who don't know, it's if you haven't been around Kyle, or even been even on a virtual experience with him, he is anointed, literally. The words come out of his mouth, like the energy that he provides, everything about him is just totally different. It's a different experience. And Kyle, I'm so glad to have you on this platform, because tonight I want to ask you, where do you get your confidence to even, first of all, imagine the things that you imagine? Because more or less the things that you do, because those things have already been in your mind over time. Where do you get the confidence to dream as big as you dream, Kyle? Because the things that you even say that you're bringing forth, like a lot of people can't even imagine even doing.
Yeah, I think I give a lot of credit, one, to God, but I definitely give a lot of credit to my parents. I was fortunate enough to grow up in a two-parent household, and I did not. I wasn't a statistic growing up, where I came from that single parent household in the hood.
Right.
I was, privileged enough to have two parents, but the reality of my story is that my father was one of 13. He grew up in South Jersey, and his mother died when he was 7 and never had a father. He doesn't have a college degree, but he's built communities throughout the state of Georgia, and he's helped, several kids get into the NBA and NFL, and been able to help kids get into college. And he's been a servant to the community. Whereas my mother, she was the only child, and she was pregnant with my older sister at 13 years old, and had her at 14 years old, and has told us stories about how she used to have to put my sister in the back of a restaurant while she had to work, just so that she could be able to provide for her while she was in school. And with no college degree, my mother is now the only Black executive with Volvo Cars of North America. So with two parents that came from nothing, from two parents that came from the mud, that two parents that came as servants to people, as a secretary to a dealership in Volvo, to just a coach with no real background, to being able to see how much that they've been able to really accomplish. I come from a family of resiliency and excellence. So they instilled that within me in the household, that ability to not, have any excuses, to not allow my circumstance to interrupt the calling that God has put on my life, and to think bigger than what you're being exposed to. So my parents exposed me to everything when I was a kid. I remember going to Volvo events with my mom and watching how she would work the room, and going to dinners and seeing how different families, white, Asian, Indian, how they would sit and handle themselves at dinner, and what the conversation was like. My father used to always tell me, he said, I don't want you to ever search for answers. I want you to search for the best question, so that you can be able to get to the best solution. So every single time I would be listening, so that I could be able to ask the best question in the room, so that I could be able to solve a problem that I didn't even know was a problem yet. So all through my life, I wanted to be more. I wanted to drive nicer cars. I wanted to live in nicer homes. And my father and mother would always instill, if you want these things, there's a cost associated with it. There's responsibilities associated with it, but there's also a level of expertise associated with it. So my parents taught me 3 things that you need in life. They said, you need competency. You need a skill set in something. You can have charisma, but charisma without competency will keep you in your same circumstance.
Wow.
I'll say that again. Charisma without a competency will leave you in your same circumstance. There's a lot of people that talk well, but they don't know anything. So you won't be able to move forward. Number 2 is capital. Either you have resources financially or real estate, or you know people. So human capital or actually financial capital. And then number 3 is consistency. My father said, you can fail until you actually win. If you fail long enough, you'll learn how to win. Wow, and if you win long enough, you'll know how to overcome failure. So for me, I've never accepted failure. I've always learned from wins. I've remained consistent. I've built the right relationships. I understand where the money is and how that money can be deployed to me. And I have a skill set that will allow me to still match with my charisma, so that I'll always be out of my circumstance.
Yo, Kyle, like that right there, that charisma. Yo. All right, so check this out. So many, especially of us young Black men, Kyle, we thrive in our charisma. That's really all we have. Like we that's all we know to resort to. Like you said a word, resource. Like we refer to our charisma because there's no true substance, because a lot of the time there's no access to information. And when you said that your parents exposed you to so much at an early age, shout out to your parents, man. Like, and also shout out to you for the awareness, bro, because there's so many kids that even that were in your position don't give their parents the credit that they deserve, bro. So I salute you for even having understanding, like, my parents are the reason why I am the way I am today.
Exactly.
Man. That right there, like that gives me another perspective, Kyle, because like you don't hear that too much, right? You don't hear a young man say, well, I wasn't the statistic. I didn't have the single family home. Like, yo, that's rare. Like to hear and to hear someone articulate that in this day and age is definitely rare. And to actually walk in that and not try to be, because let me tell you, Kyle, I hear so many people that I know didn't come from the mud, but they want that story. They want that experience. And the fact that you actually embrace what you are and who you are and where you came from, that explains where you get your confidence. that explains it.
I think, interestingly, as people in general, we are survivors and we're problem solvers, especially as men.
Right.
Well, the reality of somebody that does come from a single parent household or comes from a disadvantaged background, their focus, their motivation is trying to figure out how to get out of that problem so that they can be able to have some type of need that they don't have.
Right.
My problems were identifying that I am different and owning who I was in that season and recognizing that I don't have to be in struggle to be successful. And I have to own my story, because I think oftentimes we always think that our story has to start with struggle.
Yes.
And it doesn't. Sometimes the better stories is understanding how you appreciate it and were grateful and humble through privilege, and you were given access to something so that you can then go back to your community that identifies with you and then teach them and then provide them with access that they don't have. So this year I turned 30, and instead of me turning up on my 30th birthday and doing what 30-year-olds usually do, I'm planning a conference called the Impact 30, and I'm bringing 30 students to Charlotte, North Carolina, where I reside, and I'm going to give them donating $1,000 per student to get them into college.
Wow.
So for my 30th birthday, I want to donate and give scholarships. I want to donate $30,000. And the biggest thing is because if I was given access to more information or to different things in my life, and I recognized that, and I was given, a leg up in certain areas, then now it's up to me to serve in higher areas as well.
Right.
Because there was somebody out there that I can benefit because I'm here. And oftentimes we don't see the advantages that we have. True. And we have privileges and we want to go down to disadvantage rather than owning what God has given us in leveraging that to be able to pull other people up.
Yo, Kyle, let me ask you a question. Why do you think that is, bro? Like, and that intrigues me. Why do we want to go backwards? Why is that the cool thing, right? Like, why is that the mindset of us? We feel like the struggle is where we want to be. What is that about?
I believe that society has found a great way to not ostracize, but accept pain. I think they've found a way to market pain, because in any story, it's kind of like in any movie, it starts off with some type of struggle that's happening, some type of loss, some type of realization, some type of pain, and it's the hero's journey. And then it shows them how they move up through that hero's journey, that rich man that loses everything. It's the story of them building it back up that then people follow. People love that. It's the story of how, the person sold drugs and then got locked up and then, became the CEO and then crossed over and all these different things. People admire that more than the intellectual. But when you think about it, Martin Luther King was an intellectual. Booker T. Washington was an intellectual. W.E.B. Du Bois was an intellectual.
Right.
When you think about the people that set the foundation to where we are today, they were intellectuals. And we never have given our people information to those types of people. Rather, the people that we look up to are the rappers, are the athletes, are these types of individuals, instead of really learning from the godfathers, especially in the Black communities, that actually wanted to educate the community, that actually wanted to become more, that actually held our women at a higher standard, that actually respected each other and all these different things. The bankers in our communities, the Black Wall Streets, the Black educators, all of those different things. So for me, my parents didn't expose me really to rap. They exposed me to what the possibility of what I could be. And I was attracted more to a man in a suit than a man that sagged his pants. But I understood that the man that sagged his pants is still valuable of the same opportunities
Right.
of the man that wears the suit. And it's just up to me to understand both perspectives while realizing that we're both on the same page. We just have two different ways of getting it, but I can still educate them at the same way.
Bro, and you just like slipped right into my next question, bro, because that takes character, right? Like that takes understanding, and then like it takes you actually having character in yourself as a man. Like, and I want to talk about where obviously like your father has instilled a lot of things into you, but what about character did your father teach you?
3 things that my father used to always teach me is treat people how you want to be treated. Speak before you think before you speak. And what was the third one? Just be respectful, essentially. Integrity is everything. And character and integrity were the biggest. Oh, always be honest, right? Always be a person of your word. It was the third thing. And for me, so I grew up in a Jehovah's Witness household. So my father was a witness, and it was a little bit different in my household. I remember growing up on the weekdays, you know, I was an athlete and I was a student and all these different things, but we would have to literally go around and pass out the pamphlets at people's houses, like way before COVID, all those different things. We'd be standing in front of the store, like passing out things. And interestingly, that taught me how to accept no. That taught me how to communicate with different people. That taught me so many different things. Interestingly, I learned confidence because when I was younger, I wasn't always this person. My father used to take me to the mall on Saturdays, and he used to literally pay me $20. He would say, I'm gonna give you $20 if you just talk to 20 people. So I would literally have to go talk to people and just introduce myself. I was like 12, 13 years old. And I would just introduce myself. Hey, how you doing? My name is Kyle King. I just wanted to come introduce myself. What's your name? And initially, it didn't start like that. Initially, I was really nervous. I felt like I was having anxiety and all these different things I was sweating. Over time, then I could literally be holding conversations. So at the beginning, it was literally like 20, 30-second conversations. And then me and my father, you know, months and years later, we would be in there for hours because I would be having 10, 15, 20-minute conversations with people. By the time I got to high school, I could publicly speak. I would be that person in front of the classroom rocking it out. I would be the one in the audience or at school events opening up, you know, the different speakers that came in. I would be the one in the city council meetings talking on behalf of the educational system. So from these 2 parents that grew up in the hood, that didn't have parents, that didn't have these different things, that were those disadvantaged children, provided a pathway and exposed me and challenged me in ways that I didn't feel comfortable in, but also provided me with the confidence, with the ability to be more than what I believed that I could even be. And the reality of it is during the process, I didn't understand it and it was uncomfortable. But getting to the process allowed me to actually fall in love with the result. So hopefully that answers your question.
No, it absolutely do go, yo, Kyle, because I'm sitting here and I'm like, yo, you said that knocking on the doors, and like I'm sitting here laughing because like growing up, I'm Pentecostal, right? So we go to church on Sunday. So like y'all knocking on the doors on Saturday morning, we're like, yo, what are they doing? Like, why didn't bang on the door? But when you said something that was so powerful that it taught you how to deal with no, and that stuck out to me so big because, bro, that you don't know how many men that I come in contact with that just don't understand the concept of and how to embrace no. They take no as the most damning thing that could happen to them. It almost like it crushes their entire spirit. And you had to learn how to deal with no at an early age, bro. That had to be rough at first, especially as a child, man.
No, it definitely was, man. And interestingly, I was told no, I think from my parents in the most heartbreaking ways. And what I mean by that is I was never beaten as a kid. Like I didn't get spankings, but I had to prove everything in the household. So when I would get in trouble, or I would do things, it wasn't a spanking that I got. My parents would make me stand up and read books out loud. And then at the end of the chapter, I would have to literally recite what I read Now, 20 years later, it's so interesting because people always say, like, one of your gifts, like, I can literally, when I read a book, I can see in my mind the chapters and the words, and I could recite it to, like, all right, on page 62 in the book by Bob Buford, and halftime, it talks about creating silence. Like, I can literally see words in my head. So it was very uncomfortable and very unorthodox. So certain things in the household taught me how to say no to, or how these systems, like, you have to earn everything.
Yes.
So what I mean by the heartbreaking experience, so I played basketball and I was a good athlete, but my father taught me to be humble and not be entitled to anything. My first 3 years playing AAU, my father was the coach. He made me sit the bench. He made me sit the bench and come off the bench. Mind you, I was putting up numbers. I was doing all the same practices, all the same different things as any other student or any other athlete. But he said, if you want this, I'm not giving this to you because I'm your dad. You have to earn this, not in my eyes, but in the eyes of your teammates. And everything that you want in life, you have to earn. So no, you're not getting the starting position when your team believes that you should be out there first. That's when I put you out there first. And for me, that's instilled in me. Like, even like oftentimes we believe that entitlement, in my opinion, is that when we genuinely believe and we feel like we deserve something that we do not have the results or the backing or the education to deserve, right? Because we think we deserve something that we haven't practiced. We think just because we have a degree that we should get that job. We think just because we have things that we bring to the table, we should get that girl or that guy. We think all these things. But for me, my father early on said, everything that you want, you have to work for and you have to earn it. And you're a student athlete first. So if I didn't maintain a 4.0 GPA, I couldn't play ball, a 4.0. So and in my household, another thing that they instilled is that we don't celebrate what you should be doing. We celebrate success. So good grades is not a celebration. Good grades is what you should be doing, because if you communicated that you wanted to go Division I into a great school, then these are the things that you have to do. But when you go above and beyond what you're supposed to do, now we celebrate those successes.
Yo, that is such a demanding, like, in my mind, especially because I didn't come from a very disciplined, structured home, right? Like, I came home from school. You do your homework. All right, homework is done. All right, do whatever you want to do. So that's the structure I have. And in my mind, bro, when you said your discipline wasn't you're behind getting kicked, like, now that I think about it, like, I think I might like the fact that I got my behind kicked, Joe, because at that age, bro, I couldn't even imagine having to read out loud. And then not only just reading out loud, having to be able to retain information and then spit it back out. Like, wait a minute. Like, my brain, like, just even right now, thinking about that, I'm gonna get anxiety, because it's like, yo, at that age and as a child, like, yo, please just beat me, ma. Okay, just beat me. So, and I love the fact that you said your father was like, yo, we don't celebrate the things you should be doing. Like, yo, that's the culture I have in my household right now. Like, where I'm not clapping my hands because you brushed your teeth this morning. I don't. No, I'm not celebrating, and when we don't go through things on an everyday basis about, like, right now I have young children. So my son, some mornings he wants to fight me about brushing his teeth, and I'm like, no. We do. This is something that you have no other choice. This is a part of what you do.
Exactly.
And like, these days that we're in right now about this whole showing up and getting participation trophies. I told my wife, if my kids bring home anybody's participation trophy, that's going to be like firewood. Like, we don't just get it. No, you don't get anything just for showing up. And I'm so glad that you even said that your dad even. Wait, hold on, Kyle. But that 4.0 to play basketball, what was that like, bro?
My father used to always say, like, if you're competing against anybody, right? If you're in a room with other athletes that are just as good as you, what are you going to do? What can separate you? You have the same grades. If you have the same athletic ability, what will separate you? So I had to volunteer every weekend. I had to do different things. I did community service early on as a kid. So all of the different things that I do now as an adult are essentially the same things that I did as a kid. It's the same exact routines. And that's what's always separated me from any student. Like when I was in college, it's the same thing as I was volunteering. I was starting a business. I was a student athlete. I had a 4.0 GPA, and then I was still in the community. And it's so majority of people are only doing what they were supposed to be doing.
Right.
So you're only going to school. You're only an athlete. You're only going to work. You're only married. So it's kind of like, how would you introduce yourself? I'm the wife of, or I'm the husband of this, and I work here, or I'm their mom. Well, outside of that, who are you?
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to be versatile because my father used to always say versatility is what then will help you increase your value. Wow. If you have different things and you're learning how to manage different things, that's why people ask, like, how do you manage being a father? You know, how do you manage being in a relationship? How do you manage being a business owner? How do you manage still writing books? How do you manage being a board member? How do you manage all these different things? I've been managing stuff since I was 10. It's the same stuff.
Right.
And oftentimes we've only been really managing ourselves or our own, you go to school, come home, play video games, you're done.
Right.
But no, if my parents taught me how to manage these different things,
right.
You have chores, you have responsibilities at the house, you have responsibilities as an athlete, you have responsibilities in school, but you also have a responsibility to your community. It's the same things that instilled in me today. So now my son, when we go on business trips, you have a responsibility to sit here and watch. When we go, serve in our community, this is what we're doing. When we're in church, this is how you serve. This is how you listen. This is what the scripture means. You have a responsibility in this household. Every single morning, you make your bed like a hotel, not just throw your pillows up. I don't care if you're 6. You know how to do it.
Right.
Now, I'll help you initially. You have a responsibility to brush your teeth because your hygiene is important. You shower, you get dressed. You have a responsibility to pull out your clothes the night before so you could be prepared. You have a responsibility to pull out the book so that you can hold your father accountable to read to you at night. Do not go to sleep until I read to you. So it's crazy because some nights I be tired. It's like, Carl, we're reading in the morning. No, Daddy, you said you read tonight. And that's not just teaching him. It's not about books. It's teaching him how when I say something, you honor your commitment and you use your voice when somebody's not honoring their commitment. It's the same things that my father taught me, and I'm just instilling that into him at 6.
Yo, Kyle, like you gave me goosebumps with that because like I think about myself right now. My son, he's 4 now, and my daughter's 5, and I'm getting more sterner, like obviously because they're transitioning into that space now, and some mornings it's like it's free flowing and everything is so good, everything is easy going, but there's other mornings where it's like, oh no, you have to understand that this is your responsibility. And the hardest part about parenting is watching them struggle and having to let them struggle. Right? Like when I see my daughter, like when she's frustrated or she's trying to put something on, like when she's trying to put her shirt over her head or something like that of that nature, my first instinct is to go help her get out of the situation she's in. But I've learned that even in my own life personally, like the reason why I struggle with being able to deal with situations because someone always came over to help me before it took me time to understand what I was going through. So like I don't want to give her that same crush that I had to hold on to growing up in my lifestyle. So now it's like it hurts me, but it's times where I just sit back and just let her figure it out, and that builds them later on to be able to say, you know what, I can figure this problem out, right? Like when you tell your son to go pull his clothes out, he has understanding. All right, I know where these things are. Let me go, and if it's not where it's supposed to be at, I can ask my dad, or I can just figure this out because you've trained him to do that. And that all comes from, it's so crazy because it starts with your pops, bro. Like it starts with your pops, man. Like this is so dope because I'm looking in the middle of 3 generations when I talk to you, right? Like I'm looking at everything that your father's poured into you, and I'm watching the actualization of it, and then I'm seeing you pour it into your son. It's an amazing view, and it's inspired to me because I don't particularly have the dad figure that poured into me in my entire life, but that's not my excuse. I learned through men like you who have had fathers in their lives what to pour, right? So I listen very carefully, especially when men like yourself talk about the encounters with your fathers or the lessons. Like, trust me when I tell you, when this podcast is over, I'm gonna go back and get those 3 pointers and write those down, because I know that any generational curse that my son picks up is because I didn't break it. And that's my goal in life. I don't want to hand over the things and that tormented me or the questions I didn't have answered. So every time I come into in contact with a man like yourself or anyone else who's had the opportunity to be poured in by a father or another man of that nature, I count it a blessing. So my next question before we get up out of here shortly is that when you're on an everyday journey throughout your life, like you have so many things that you're a part of, how do you balance all these things and still have the mindset to take care of Kyle?
I think this may be one of my favorite questions to answer.
Yes.
So 2 years ago, a mentor of mine, shout out to Andre Norman, because I give credit where credit is due. He asked me a question. He said, Kyle, if you could have any 10 things in life, what would they be? And it was a moment when he asked me that I had to like really pause, just like I pause now. And I was like, what do you mean? He said, if today was your last day, or if, you know, God granted you everything that you wanted tomorrow, if you could have any 10 things in life, what would you want? I was like, all right. So I gave him my 10. You know, there was superficial things on there. There was impactful things on there. But overall, my list has grown to 5 strong things. 5 strong things. And this is my purpose blueprint, is my top 5. And I recommend anybody listening to this podcast, after this podcast, I need you to do this exact activity, because this is what helps me guide my life. Number one, everybody's going to pass one day. But for me, the highest priority, number 1, is I want to be known as a father that loved his children, that showed up for his children, that was admirable, that was a good husband, that was a good father, that was committed to his community. I want my children to look up to me and love me and just want to be like their father. Because I think oftentimes we don't have that representation of what good fatherhood and what good husbandship looks like. So that's number 1. Number 2 is I want to be able to marry one day a wife that I'm proud of, because I believe that women are the tide and men are the ships. And I believe as we continue to empower, inspire, and motivate our women, then we will rise as men. So I want a wife that I can sit in the audience and watch her and invest in her and support her rock out a whole audience or rock out a whole stadium. Number 3 for me is just like I talked about earlier with my father's background. He never had a father, but he's instilled so much into me.
Right.
So I'm working on, it's called Maryland Manor, and it's a boarding school for young Black boys that don't have fathers. And it's going to help them transition to get into Ivy League schools. I want to open that school. And the reason that it's called Maryland Manor is because my father's mother that passed, that I never got to meet, her name was Marilyn. And I want to be able to open that for her, you know, to represent her as recognition to her, to really show him that her legacy still lives, and the impact that she had in his life for those 7 years. I want to be able to impact people for generations to come. So that's number 3. Number 4 is I believe the lack of access, the lack of opportunity, and the lack of education, equitable education within our community is growing this continuous gap between where we need to be and where we should be, to be completely honest. So I want to open and launch an educational technology, and I want to be able to get that in front of 50 million kids across the nation or across the world, and I want to be able to win a Nobel Peace Prize from that. So that's something that we're working on behind the scenes, and the goal of that is to disrupt the educational system as we see it, and it's going to be a technology that will work in tandem and parallel with the metaverse, and we will be launching that publicly very soon. Wow. And then number 5 is I want to die empty. I want to die empty. And what I mean by that is that I think oftentimes we have this superficial the superficial perspective of dying empty, like, oh, I want all of my resources to be given and all these
Right.
accounted for. And there was a statistic that I read that if you're a millionaire, if you're wealthy, 4 generations after you, they'll be broke. Your kids will be broke 4 generations after. So the reality of it is that all the buildings we own, all the money we've made, 4 generations or 5 generations after us, it's going to be gone anyway, right? But what dying empty looks like for me is all of my stories, all of my education, all of my experiences, all of my blueprints to how I became the man that I became, all of the stories of my father, all of the experiences with my son. I want to be able to write those in whether books, memoirs, or give them and educate people. And by the time I leave this world, I want to be able to say that all of what I have experienced in life and all that God has given me intellectually, emotionally, spiritually, personally, professionally, I want to give to the world. And I do not want to go into that grave with anything left inside of my tank. That's how legacy is built, because you cannot pass down buildings, but you can pass down blueprints, because 4 or 5 generations after me, that building may not be there because of economics and because of global warming and because of the world. But if I've given 4 to 5 generations worth of knowledge, intellect, and all of the different things that have helped me build, they can lose everything, but they still have the blueprint to building their own foundation in their own building.
Yo, Kyle, like you're inspirational, bro. Like you're the size of your vision is, does it scare you?
Yeah.
Oh wow. Because listening to it, it gives me anxiety, right? Like, I'm gonna be very, very, very like transparent, Kyle, because I'm learning to broaden my horizons and think bigger, because I've always been told I can't. Right, so the can't word is implanted. So I'm constantly breaking through that. So when I hear people's visions and I hear how passionate you are about making them come to life, it's like, yo, you said you wanted to win a Nobel Peace Prize. It's like, yo, did you know what teacher said? Like, yeah, like wow, like that kind of vision, bro, and that kind of like zeal for life, bro. I commend you for it, and I admire you for it, bro. Like, I really, really thank God for just knowing you, because that's my hope. Like, I tell everybody, everyone's testimony is someone else's therapy. Like, every time I hear you speak, bro, it gives me another sense of I can do it. I can maintain it. And let me be very transparent, guys. Like, Kyle is 30 years old, and I'm 37. I'm drawing energy, and I'm drawing encouragement from a young man who's 7 years younger than me that has a vision that I can't even imagine right now. And I'm saying that to say, like, it doesn't matter where you can go and get it from. Just go get it. Like, don't let your pride or your ego stop you from being who you need to be or getting what you need to have, so you can be that. Yo, Kyle, I'm so grateful for this conversation, bro, because like always, you inspire me, but you motivated me to even be a better father, bro. Like, when you just finished saying that your father didn't have a father, but he poured so much into you, like, that's me. Like that's exactly why my position in life. And like I tell you, buddy, shout out to my stepfather, but he just wasn't there. The man only knew how to do what he can do, and he paid the bills and made sure I had a roof over my head. That's the extent of his fathership, and I don't blame him no more for that. I used to be very, very bitter about that and hurt behind it. But I know now is that you only can do what you can do. And every human is basically doing all that they can do with what they have.
Exactly.
So I've learned to say, you know what? That's not going to be my excuse. But also, I just finished watching an episode of the Social Proof podcast, and I learned a new word, polarity, right? So you just finished saying that, like, yo, your punishments were like vicious, and I was like, yo, even for me, that's like, yo, that's like cruelty right there, right? That's cruel, unusual punishment. But yo, on the other side of that coin is, yo, you're able to visualize a whole entire chapter in the book, And people who don't understand, like, in the middle of public speaking, that is the cheat code. Like, if you can remember a paragraph in the middle of you speaking, and especially in a room full of people, that gives you ultimate confidence. So your parents wasn't just disciplining you, but they was giving you skills for later on in life, bro. Exactly. And that's right there what I'm taking from that, because I realized you don't want to just punish a child and just send them up to their room because they didn't learn anything and they didn't receive anything from it. But listening to your story and listen how your parents disciplined you and also gave you a skill out of it, that also enlightened me now to even change my parenting, my style. So thank you for that. My son and my daughter appreciate that. They don't even know it yet, but they appreciate you for telling me that, man. So before we get up out of here, my final question for you tonight is, to the young man, we talk to men and women on this podcast, but for the young man, Kyle, who is looking for an answer, that is looking for someone to give him some kind of direction in life, to say, you know what, I want to be better. I just don't know how. I want to be a man of character, high character, just don't know how. I want to be a man of confidence. I just don't know how. What do you have for that young man, Kyle?
You said something that I think really spoke to me. You said that when you were younger, you were always told that you can't. And the reality of what I would tell that young man is that that is true. You can't. And I was told that I can't. And that's why my parents invited me into these rooms. That's why my parents got me mentors. That's why my parents put me on other teams so that I could get coaches. That's why my parents put me in better educational programs so that I could have better educators. Alone, we cannot do anything. That's why before I said anything, God, my parents, my mentors, my relationships, that's what's helped me get to where I am today. That's what's helped instill a vision. That's what's helped instill this purpose statement that I am able to have. I gave credit to a mentor with that purpose blueprint. I gave credit to my parents and what that was. I gave credit to mentors and different coaches that I've been able to have. So alone, you can't do anything. And that's the reality. And your first step is to first identify what your vision would be if you had everything that you wanted in your life. One question that I want you to ask yourself, young man, if my life was absolutely perfect, what would it look like? What would my relationship look like? What would the relationship with myself look like? What would my parents be doing? What would my siblings be doing? What would I be driving? Where would I be living? What would I be doing on a daily basis? What would I have on my bank account? What would I see? What feeling would I feel on a daily basis? What would inspire me every single day? What would people be saying about me? Who are the people that would be calling me or needing me to do something? When I get up in the morning, where would I be going? Would I be going to a church or to a community event? Would I be going to a television show? Where would I be going? When I'm traveling, would I be flying private? Would I be flying coach? Would I be flying first class, or would I be driving the bus? What would I be doing? And when you visualize it, the first question that I need you to ask yourself is, who is someone that I know? Who is someone that I see, or who is someone that I can meet that can at least give me one of those things? And it's not one person that has helped me in my life to create all these things. Every single person in my life has put this puzzle that I call life together, this puzzle of purpose. Every single mentor, Mr. Gibson in college, Dr. Del Smith in college, Andre Norman, David Shands, Donnie Wiggins, Kiana Williams, all these different people helped me in mental health, helped me overcome depression, helped me overcome losing a son, helped me overcome all of these different things. When I was broke, I needed somebody that understood finances. When I didn't understand entrepreneurship, I needed somebody to help me break free. When I was depressed, I needed that therapist. I needed that person to support me. When I wanted to commit suicide, I needed that person to call on to talk me off the ledge. When I lost my first son at birth, I needed somebody to help me how to grieve. When I needed to get that relationship back with God and build that relationship and that connection, I needed somebody that understood scripture and could break down that scripture. Every single season, every single chapter in my life, I needed a new person. You needed a new character. When you think about your first step in that vision statement, who was the first character that can get you one step closer? And that's the person. That's that person. That's that mentor. That's that coach that I need you to stand tall, have courage, and go introduce yourself to first.
Yo, and that right there is like, if somebody would have told me that, right, just to go and look for the who, not how, right? Like, if somebody would have just introduced that concept, young king, listen good. Don't let your ego or your pride stop you from hearing, ultimately cause you not to be able to do. Like, yo, Kyle just gave you the blueprint to where you can start from. And let me tell you something. This is invaluable information. This podcast episode, this is invaluable to any young man or any woman out there that's looking to work on themselves and be a better version of themselves. You need someone to help you. Like I said, shout out to Mr. Myron Golden. He said, anything left to itself gets worse. You've never seen a dog train itself. You've never seen a human train itself. Like, anything that's left to itself gets worse. So that means you need something outside of you to help you become better.
That's good.
There's help out here. Kyle is available. I am available. There is so many men and women in our network that are available. Please do not sit home by yourself and try to do this alone. You don't have to. And that was one of the things that I struggled with for so long before I was introduced into the network of phenomenal men like Kyle and all the other gentlemen and women that I've been introduced to. I was doing this whole thing called life on my own. And I struggled for so long. I banged my heads. I went through so many things that, had I just had the who and wasn't searching for the how, I probably wouldn't have had to go through some of the hardships. So with that being said, guys, I really, 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 really pray that you receive something, and not only that you receive something, but you take something from this that you can apply to your life to make yourself the person that you see yourself as. Because we all have the vision of who we are, right? We all have our own vision of who we are, but we don't ever act on it until we have someone that can show us that it's possible to get that done. And Kyle literally just gave the blueprint that you can start from scratch, young king and young queen out there. So with that being said, yo, Kyle, thank you, my brother. Thank you so much for coming to this platform and just blessing us with the information that you did. Please do me a favor and let everyone know out there how they can contact you, how they can reach you if they're looking to reach out with you.
For sure. Instagram, Kyle S. King. YouTube, Kyle S. King. And LinkedIn, Kyle S. King.
Absolutely. And are there any offer that you have right now, Kyle, that you want to put out there for the people out there?
I believe that the greatest offer is the one that you search for. I want you to search for it. I'm not here to sell. I'm here to serve.
Right?
So if there's something that resonated with you, I would recommend you look at my different pages and see what resonates with you in your season. But I'm here to serve you. And I want you to go through the different things that we talked about in this episode. I want you to subscribe to this podcast. I want you to like this podcast. I want you to leave a review on this podcast, because it's about serving you in this season through this podcast, through this channel. And then you'll be able to be led to the resources that can get you to the next chapter.
Oh, man. Yo, Kyle, I thank you. And I appreciate you for that. And everybody out there, man, listen, please like, comment, and subscribe. I appreciate each and every one of you guys out there. You know, I really do, because like I tell you, every time I get a DM, guys, every time I see somebody that actually in real life or have a conversation and you just happen to mention this podcast, or you give me a thumbs up, tell me keep going, you really don't understand how much that really means to me. Like, on the days where I'm not as motivated or I'm not inspired to come on this podcast and to pour a gift from myself, but every single time I think back to who this is going out to and how this is making an impact and how this is helping the world, I say to myself, I got to keep going. So I appreciate and I thank each and every one of you guys out there who is sharing, who is DMing me, who is keeping me going, and all to the new ones who's coming on to subscribe. I thank you and appreciate you as well. To everyone out there, guys, this has been another awesome episode of the Uniquely Confident Podcast. You guys know, around here, we finish the podcast the same way each and every week. So until the next time we see you, remember, confidence is all about how you see yourself. It's not about how somebody else sees you, but it's about how you see yourself. And until the next time I see you, be good to yourself and the ones around you. And if you can't be good to the ones around you, that's okay. Just get those people from around you. Yo, this is RJD, the Imperfect Gentleman, your men's character and confidence development coach. Y'all be blessed, because we will. Peace, y'all.